Okay, hi everyone. My name is Jason Pollock. Welcome to Many Moving Parts. Today I have a very special guest, Julie Patenaude, and Julie and I worked together at the Museum of Civilization 25 or more years ago. And I think it's fair to say that neither of us have aged a day since.
Correct.
But yeah, Jeannie and I were tour guides together at the museum, and we of course reconnected on social media, a few years ago. And when I put out a call on social media asking for people to come on the show that might want to share their mental health journey, Julie shared with me that she had experienced depression, and so she offered herself to come on board and talk about her experience. So Judy, welcome. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Um, well, I'm just Julie. um, I have two kids. I'm now a grandmother. Very proud of that. And I work in
Congratulations.
do school bus safety, and I do supply teaching, which is offering me a lot of challenges, but I like it very much. I've changed careers several times on the way. Um, Through life. But I'm liking very much what I do now, and I'm able to do what I like to do, not what I have to do anymore. So that's very nice, comforting. Um, I keep busy by painting, walking, hanging out with my grandkids and my kids, and I like gardening too. Very anxious for the gardening season to start up soon. I'll be able to plant my vegetables and take care of the flowers soon. Yeah, I mean, I'm not extraordinary. I'm just me.
Well, I have seen some of your pictures from Comic-Con, and I've seen some of your pictures from Comic-Con and cosplay. So I mean, I think that
Oh,
you are exceptional. You have some some very cool interests.
yeah, I like to geek out at the Comic Con and other festivals like that. I like to dress up as a superhero, and I have several different characters I like to do, and I meet up with a group of friends of mine, and we all like to do that together, and it does bring a lot of joy to a lot of people and kids, and you get to let them use your weapons.
Very nice. So, Shani, now you mentioned that you had experienced depression, and that's something, that I did not realize about you until you shared that with me. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with depression? How did that come about?
Well, first of all, it's not something that I like to share with everybody, and I don't talk about it to anybody, or especially usually whenever I'm at work, I don't discuss that. Um, I was very, after I told you that I would do this, then I was wondering, oh my God, why did I say that? And, but whenever I first started into my depression, um, I was in my 30s and I had no idea what was going on. The first time I heard depression, I was, I think, 14 years old when my parents got divorced, and I didn't like whenever you're a kid, you're bulletproof. Nothing happens to you. But every day, like at lunchtime, I would be feeling nauseous, and I'd have to go and sometimes be sick at the bathroom, and I'd get very emotional. It was like clockwork every day at the same time. So whenever I did go to the doctors and he said depression, I thought that was kind of silly. He gave me some meds. Um, I took, that one bottle, and that was the end of that. And I never mentioned it again. I never said anything again. I like as a kid, you bounce back from it, you get over it kind of thing. And then I pretty well forgot about it. I had my kids, I had gotten married and everything was good. Um, then I got a divorce and not everything was good. And I was a single mom for a while. And then I did very well, I felt very strong and very good. And I was very happy with my daughter. And then I met the love of my life. And we we've been together for 28 years now. And after I
Mm,
had my second daughter, things were a little uh, more difficult. And the relationship between the two of us was a little going through struggles, like, any couple goes through at the beginning of a relationship. And at work, I started to get very busy, and at one point, I had to set up client services for a new establishment. And it took up a lot of my time. I worked like 60 to 80 hours a week for a year,
mm,
uh, getting everything done, giving my all. And it helped to burn me out. I was getting very tired. I was getting very, how do you say, like um, very like moody. Like I get like you either like have a high or a low. You're very energetic or you're super tired.
mm,
And one day at work, my boss called me and told me that he was changing my schedules, and that I'd work like a different schedule. Not a big deal, but I was sitting in my office and I started to cry and cry and cry and cry. And then a coworker of mine called me like 3 hours after I was told my schedule was going to change, and I was still crying, and I
mm,
didn't even realize how long it was that I was just sitting there in my office. And being a manager, I was supposed to be like walking all over the place. You meet your employees, your customers, and you check up on things. And I was just stuck in my office, and I couldn't really move. And one of the coworker that called me, she told me that she thought I was going through a depression. And I thought, that's ridiculous. I don't get depressed. I'm the strong one. I'm the one that makes things happen. I'm the mom. Things like that don't happen to me. So after talking with her for about half an hour, I'd say, she made me swear that I would drive to the doctors and go and talk to him. And finally, I said, okay, fine, fine. I'll go to the doctors and I'll do what you said and I'll talk to him. So I go to the doctors, and I'm surprised that I went to the doctors because I don't like going to the doctor. I don't like going to the dentist. Like I said, I'm strong. I don't
mm,
need doctors and all this kind of thing. But after talking to him, he told me that I was going through a major depression. And again, I said, that's
mhm,
ridiculous. I don't go through depression. I'm stressed out, I'm busy, but I'm not depressed. So you leave with that. And really didn't know how to react. I didn't know what to say. Um, do I say anything? Do I tell anybody? You know what I mean? So I walked away, and I had to go back again a week later. And then I was prescribed medication to help with the depression and help with the highs and the lows and the crying and the extreme lows, because all of a sudden I had these lows. Um, but
mm,
like whenever it happens one day at a time and you're so busy, you don't really notice, a little bit of change, a little tiny change every day. And, but I mean, I got there and it was very, very low. It was very, very difficult. I felt like I was somebody else
mm,
pretending to be Julie, you know. and
Mm.
it was very, it was so dark, so often. And like there's a lot of things that I don't even remember. Sometimes my kids will be talking to me about events, or remember that day we did that, or this birthday, or this Halloween. um, and I have to say no, or sometimes I'll pretend that I remember just so I don't make them feel bad. It's not that
Mm.
I didn't want to remember, or that event wasn't important, but I just I don't remember. Um, and it's still very difficult for me to talk about it. But one thing that I did do is talk about it. You know, after I accepted that I was going through a depression, um, I talked about it. Um, but it's hard to talk about it whenever you don't even understand what's going on. You know, it's like whenever people are asking you what's wrong, you don't know. Like I don't know what's wrong. You know, I'd say like my brain is broken because I didn't always understand how or why I felt the way I did, because I always laugh and uh, playing jokes and pranks, and you know I just like to have a good time, and that was all gone. I wanted to be at home, curled up in a little ball in bed. I didn't want to get out of bed. Um, so
Mm.
it was very, very difficult to go down that hill. And I went down so fast after it hit me. I went down so fast, it's unreal, because I have about 2, 3 years where it was like extreme, where I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to socialize. If I was with people, I would be very awkward with myself. Like my brain would be running 100 miles an hour while I'm trying to figure out just how to say hi to somebody, because I felt so awkward
Mhm.
and like I didn't belong, like I was the only different person there. So it was very weird to go out and try and socialize all of a sudden, not knowing what to say or how to stand or where to stand. Um, and you're always like, I'm always beating myself up, you know, uh, if you say something, then I'll try and analyze what I said because I feel stupid. I feel like that sounded
Mhm.
stupid, or I look stupid. I shouldn't have been wearing this. You know, I'm not dressed like everybody. Like you just like your brain just doesn't stop for a minute at times. You get so overwhelmed with over analyzing everything on top of feeling ugly and stupid and awkward, and like you just don't belong. You're not matching everybody.
Mhm.
So that's a big part of why you'd want to stay home, on top of feeling dark and depressed. Um, it's it's a very odd thing, and I think back. You know, I look back at myself and I don't recognize myself. I don't even know who I was. You know, and I say
Mhm.
was. I mean, after you have depression, you live with it always. You know, it's always there. But I'm not going through a major depression anymore. I'm much better now. But it took a long time. Remember, whenever I
Mhm.
did lose a job that I was where I was just starting to feel very depressed, and after, well, before I stopped working, some coworkers uh, treated me like I was pretending, you know. So um, I would have like a reduced workload, and they didn't like that, you know, because you look at me and I look fine.
Mhm.
Well, it's not like having a broken leg. You can see, look, I have a cast. I can show you an x-ray that my bone is broken. You look fine. When you're talking, well,
Yeah.
depending on it, the day, you sound fine, you look fine. You know, why all of a sudden can't you do what you've always done? And again, the answer is, I don't know. I can't explain it. So that was very difficult. And after I stopped working, it I like crashed and burned right after, because I had nothing to look forward to keep my mind occupied. So whenever I started to stay at home, it was like worse. I didn't want to go out at all. And I stayed in bed all day. I remember I would put an alarm on at 2:45 in the afternoon and get up, take a shower, quickly make my bed. And so I could pretend that I was normal for my kids when they arrive home from school, because I didn't want them to know
Mm.
what was going on for real. And that lasted a long time, where like nobody, not even my kids and my husband, realized how low I was. But whenever I was growing up, you didn't talk about depression. That was like, you're like you're nuts, you're wacko. Depression wasn't a thing when I was a kid. So it was very
Mhm.
difficult for me to talk about it to start off. you know. But after I started to look into it also, that helped a lot. I was reading a lot about what depression is, to understand what I was going through, because I didn't understand like what was going on. So, it's a chemical imbalance in your brain, was the first thing that I read. And I was like, oh my God, this sounds awful. What am I dealing with here? But the more I read and educated myself, I was also able to understand more what I was going through. I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't help myself at first. There was nothing, I felt powerless with myself. But I
Mhm.
started to talk about it more. I remember the first time that I was off of work, I went back like 3 months after, and the first thing somebody told me whenever I walked in was, "Hey, Julie, how's it going? You were on a big vacation, or did you go away or something?" And I stopped everybody right there, and we all sat down in the lunchroom at the time, and I just told everybody, listen, I wasn't on vacation. I was not gone away. I was going through a depression. I'm going through a depression. I was curled up in a little ball most of the time. I was in bed, crying. Um, and I'm going through a depression. I don't know. Like, I didn't really explain what I was thinking and going through in full detail, because I didn't really know, but I just let them know what was going on
Mhm.
with me. And it was very hard. It was embarrassing. I felt weak, but within 3 days, I had 4 or 5 people take me aside, make me promise I wouldn't tell anybody, as they talked to me about their depression and what they were going through.
Mhm.
And they couldn't believe that I just came out and said it, that I'm going through a depression. And if you wanted to talk about it, let me know. And they came and talked to me about it. But like I said, it was a secret. They didn't want me to tell anybody. And I understand that too, because I didn't talk about it at all for a long time. But
Mhm.
yeah, it was very difficult to accept it myself and then talk about it, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. And it's there's such a stigma, against mental illness in general, but sort of, especially depression, because like you said, people misunderstand it. They certainly, when I knew you at the museum, you were always kind of like the life of the party. You know what I mean? Like you would walk into a room like you owned the place, and seemed very, confident, and always cracking a joke, and just always very lively. And people say that about lots of people who have depression. We had no idea, because you present as though, everything is fine. And I think that's largely, a lot of the times, because we have a stigma in our own minds against ourselves, that we can't, like you said, you felt weak, you felt stupid. You probably felt like you should just be able to think your way out of it, or, have a bath or take a walk and just, cheer up, which is what so many people tell someone who's depressed, just think happy thoughts. And it's like, that's what you
If, o-
can't
if only
do.
it was that easy, you know?
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. But I had a very similar experience to you when I had my depression, when I was first diagnosed with depression. Excuse me. I cried for like 3 days straight. And I was 25 years old, and that's how I ended up leaving the museum. I just disappeared one day, because I had gone to visit my great uncle who was dying of cancer, and just was helping around the house for, one of the last weekends of his life. And I was shoveling snow, and I got out of breath. And I don't know why, but being out of breath, just everything collapsed. Like it's like the floor fell out from underneath me, and I wept for, 2 or 3 days straight. I slept in between, but I mean, I could not stop crying, and I don't know exactly what I was crying about, but I have been in a similar spot. So I mean, I can really resonate with that, and I know something of how difficult that place is. So, um, what did you do in terms of treatment? Like, what was you said you had taken some meds. I mean, were those helpful?
Well, at first, yes, because like I said, I had extreme highs and extreme lows, and taking the meds just kept me in the middle, but I felt very numb, like emotionless,
Mm,
you know. At first, that was a good thing because I could just be like in the middle, but I got tired of that because it wasn't me. And there was a little voice inside me also
mm,
that what kept saying like, this is not Julie, this is not you, this is like, I knew it wasn't going to last forever, but for a long time you don't know how to get out of it. And a couple of times I tried to stop taking the meds, and it was not good. I went back to crying and being super emotional, and um, uh, uh, like uh, like just up and down, like all over the map, literally all over the map. And so I took the meds for about 2 to 3 years in total, and whenever it
mm,
was very dark. But what helped me it was to get out and to talk about it, and to explain to people what I was going through whenever I was having like a good day or a bad day. And I talked a lot about it to my husband, and to have him understand what I was going through, because at first he didn't get it either. Like, he had never heard of anybody with depression, and I was
mm,
always very strong with him. And all of a sudden, I couldn't do all these things, and he would also get frustrated with me and angry, and because he didn't understand, I couldn't explain it properly. But just talking about it and talking and re-explaining, and sometimes I'd have good days and it would just go well, and other times it would go bad. But slowly, um, I would be able to recognize a low before the low hit. And then
okay.
I'd be able to express myself better before the low hit. So I could explain to my husband better what was going on or what was about to happen, because you almost feel like your brain is going to explode all of a sudden. You feel completely overwhelmed. All of a sudden it hits you, it's like a hot flash, you know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden
Mm,
you're all hot and sweaty. Well, all of a sudden my brain is not working right, and you know that a low is coming. And but like, just before it happens, like I said, I'd be better able to explain it to my husband. So then whenever I was in a low, or I just start crying and I couldn't stop crying for 2 hours kind of thing, then he'd be better equipped to help me and support me and just give me the hug that I needed, instead of being like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What do you want? You know, like, what can I do? Because just that sometimes would drive me crazy, you know, like, shut up, stop talking. And then it becomes an argument. Well, I was just trying to help. And then like everything explodes around you and you can't explain it. And then it just gets worse, because now you're in that low, or you're having the extreme emotions. My brain just wants to explode. And now I have somebody who's mad at me, and they may or may not understand. I can't explain myself. So it becomes so difficult and frustrating at times. And but slowly it becomes easier to recognize my lows or my highs, and to be able to ground myself. I had to learn about grounding. I forgot about that. And I'd be able to focus on something and realize, even though like my brain is like freaking out right now and I want to cry, if let's say I stare at a chair and I just look at the chair and I concentrate on the chair that is not moving, and no matter what is going on around the chair, nothing is happening to the chair. It's just sitting there, and it's just being quiet. And you're like focusing myself like that kind of helped me to calm down. And then I would talk to myself out loud. That too is another thing I did a lot. I go to the mirror and I talk to myself out loud. And because you're always beating yourself up, you're always analyzing stuff, you're always overthinking things to the point where it just drives you nuts. You want to sleep all day, and as soon as it's time to go to bed, you can't sleep because your mind is running all the time. And you feel bad about the things you like, the stupid things you said or the mistakes you did. And you make a lot of mistakes when you're going through major depression like this, because you can't think right. So it helped me a lot to, I would look in the mirror and say to myself out loud what was going through my mind. And what would happen whenever I'd actually hear the words, I'd realize how ridiculous it sounds. And I started to realize the way I talk to myself, I would never say that to anybody else. I would never make anybody feel that way or talk to them that way. Or like if they made a mistake, I would never trash them to the point that I'm doing to myself all the time. It just sounds ridiculous. And I was able to see that when I was in the mirror looking at myself and talking to myself. And that helped me a lot to do that whenever I got overwhelmed with everything that was going on. And it very, like, you realize quickly what you sound like. You know, like, how can I talk to myself like that when I would never do that to my worst enemy? And you're doing it to yourself. But it's whenever I
Yeah.
started to talk to myself out loud is where I realized how silly some of the things I'm going through can be. Because you're dark, you're like, nobody, like, we've all heard, like, nobody's as hard on yourself, like, more than you. We'll beat ourselves than anybody else will. We're hardest on ourselves. But whenever you're going through a depression, that level is like it's like sky high. It's not normal to be that hard on yourself and to think the way that you do. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but do you understand, like, kind of saying here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I do, absolutely. I mean, having been through depression myself, and even when I'm not in sort of a depressive state, I still have that internal monologue. Like I can really relate to what you were saying, being hard on yourself and being hyper vigilant and everything, analyzing everything I do and everything I say and thinking, oh gosh, how could I have been so dumb to say that or do that. And then realizing after the fact that nobody else even ever noticed that I did that or
Yeah.
said that, I was the only one who was observing that. But I really like the strategy of talking to yourself in the mirror, because I think you're absolutely right. There are things that we say to ourselves about ourselves that we would never say to sort of the ones we love. And I know when I'm with clients, a lot of the times, they will tell me sort of about their narrative, and I will flip it back and I will say, if you had a friend who was going through exactly what you were going through, or a loved one, a child or a parent or a spouse, how would you talk to them? And it's usually very different than the way they would talk to themselves. And I'm just like, why do we hold ourselves to this unrealistic standard that is different than what we would hold, you know, anybody else to?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Um, whenever when whenever I was feeling good, another thing that I would do also, whenever I was having a good day, whenever I was feeling good, what I would do is call a bunch of people, or message them and make all these plans. Okay, well, tomorrow we're going to go
Hmm.
there, and the next day I'm going to meet somebody else and we're going to do this. And I'd make all these plans and appointments, because I knew, like, tomorrow, if I'm feeling bad, or like in 5 minutes, if I'm feeling bad, there's no way that I'm going to call anybody and make plans, because I'm going to regret having made these plans. But as I was making these plans, and sometimes too, while I was talking to the person, making up a date kind of thing, I would I would be telling myself, I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to go. I'm I'm
Hmm.
not gonna know what to say. I'm not going to feel like it. I'm going to have a hard time waking up in the morning and showering and get dressed. Like, because when you're going through a depression, just showering and getting dressed and getting ready to go is a it's a huge job, and you feel
Hmm.
anxiety. And like, it took me a long time to be able to just get up, like I said, and just do the normal morning routine. It became like it took me
Yeah.
all day sometimes just to get dressed and motivated. Like, there was no motivation for anything, except to sleep.
Hmm.
Like, some mornings I'd wake up and I'd be disappointed that I'm alive. I'd pray for my own
Yeah.
death sometimes, because it was so
Yep.
difficult just to get ready, just to do simple things. It was just so hard. But as I did these dates and these appointments and meets and go out for supper, meet for lunch and all that, it forced me. That day I was like, okay, I got to do this. And I go without feeling like it. But every time I go out, or I take a walk, or I meet somebody, I never regretted doing it afterwards. I hated having to get
Hmm.
ready. I hated having to go there. And I had a lot of anxiety. I was very nervous, self doubt, and all that stuff. But after I started talking about it, I would just tell people, this is how I'm feeling. I feel silly, or I feel good, or, whatever I was going through, I shared it and I talked about it. And I can't tell you how often I was thanked for sharing that, because a lot of people feel like that too. And they're just embarrassed and
Hmm.
feel humiliated to talk about it. So I surprised a lot of people talking about it. And I would correct people, like, whenever they're saying, like, oh, you're just having a bad day. And it's like, no, it's not just a bad day. This is actually what's going on. And I would explain what was
Hmm.
going on. Like, not lengthy, just like, you take a minute, just explain to people what's going on with you. So if you sound off, don't be shy. Let me know, because I would let you know. So
Hmm.
slowly,
Hmm.
didn't become it became me wanting to go out, not me pretending that I want to be there because that's what I should do. And one day I just
Hmm.
got up, and I was done. I was done with the pills. I was done being just this medium, neutral, mostly emotionally. Not that I was a robot or I couldn't laugh or cry like, normal people, but I felt better about myself, and the
Mhm.
highs and the lows were less high and, yeah, like extreme highs and extreme lows, less peaks. I was better able to
Mhm.
manage myself, understand myself, explain myself, and love myself, you know. And
Mhm.
my kids help me out a lot for that. I say a lot of times my kids saved my life, because I did everything was for them.
Mhm.
Very hard,
Mhm.
especially the part. These are happy tears, but especially the part
Mhm.
when,
Mhm.
whenever I think back, whenever I used to wish that I was dead, that's so hard because I truly believed that my kids would be better off without me because I just kept screwing
Yeah.
things up, man. And
Mhm.
at the same time, they are the ones that saved me because I mean, I never, like, I used to wish that I would pass away in my sleep kind of thing, but I would never have committed suicide because I love my kids so much. But I just felt so
Mhm.
broken. I just wished that they had a better mom. I just, like, you can't
Mhm.
go back in time and erase things. I can't take back all of the mistakes I made with them, around them, and letting them see me so broken. But they are the reason, and my husband too, don't get me wrong, but without my kids it would have been so much different. I would have been in that dark place much longer, I feel. um
Mhm.
but to get over that, and because I can't erase all the mistakes and the things that I've done and said when I needed help, what I can do today is be a good mom today and be an awesome grandmother and just love my kids and be there with them and help them as much as I can. And uh, and I never denied, um, this very dark period. I have my own joke. I call it the dark ages because it was very,
Mhm.
very dark for me. And all I can do is be honest about it and talk about it. If they have questions about it, I answer honestly. I never pretended like it didn't happen, you know, um, because it did happen. And I'm an awesome person today because of everything that I've been through in my life. I wouldn't be
Mhm.
today, Julie, without everything that I have been through. And I do believe that I helped a lot of people talking about it, being open about it, and making it less shameful, just
Mhm.
I don't struggle the way I did, thank goodness. I feel good. I mean, I haven't been on meds in years. I can't even remember the last time I took pills. And I feel good. And even my doctor was very, very pleased because usually whenever you go through a depression more than once, or you go for medication more than once, you're pretty well apt to be on those meds for the rest of your life. And that's what he had told me. So
Mhm.
I'm very happy and proud that I'm able to take care of myself by going out, by staying active, talking and sharing, and just be the best you can today, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. No, absolutely. And I you were talking about that feeling of not wanting to to do anything, right? And it being such a chore, like a job just to get up and get dressed. I know for me, when I am in a depressive state, I have a lot of trouble in the morning. The mornings are the worst because I'm in bed. I don't want to get out of bed. I am too terrified to face the day. Even if I don't have anything to do that day, I still feel, I've got to get up and I have to people, I have to adults. I have to go out there and do things. And that just seems so intimidating. And I know from personal experience that the thing that I don't want to do is the thing that I have to do. I don't want to get out of bed, but I know if I just lay in bed, I'm going to work myself into, a panic, or, I'll drive myself deeper into depression. I know I need to get up and just do something. And I usually find that after a few minutes, it dissipates somewhat. But like you said, if it's go out for coffee with a friend, just, go grocery shopping, just, get out and do something. I find that that is really helpful. I want to, before we talk about, sorry, what you do to stay well, because you sort of touched on that towards the end. I'm wondering, uh, you said that you were better able now to see when an episode was sort of coming on, or when a dark stage is coming on. Um, is it like sort of random for you, or is there sort of a sequence of events? Because I know I have a tendency to overwork myself, and get too involved with things and just get too busy, and that is almost sure to put me into a depressive state. I'll eventually just shut down and be like, "Bleh," screw everything. So I've started to see signs after 25 years of struggling with depression. I can see signs for myself, and I know patterns that I get involved in where I'm like, this is going to lead to, a fall. So, I mean, is that the same for you, or is it just sort of like comes out of nowhere?
Um, yeah, well, it usually comes up as a surprise, of course, because you can, for example, you can wake up in the morning and feel absolutely, awesome. Hey, I'm going to do this and this and that. And all of a sudden, it's just like a feeling that just comes over you. But I got to say, though, my depression is very, very light now. I don't go dark anymore where I'm crying for 2 days and I can't get dressed and I'm in bed. Like I never have those days anymore where I'm crying or I'm in bed all day. Um, because whenever I do feel um, anxiety is the thing that I struggle with the most now, because I know that certain situations create anxiety, but I I talk to myself like so much, and out loud I talk to myself out loud, and it calms me down. And like I've mentioned before, and I've realized this, that every time I do go out, every time I do, meet up with somebody, I never regret it. I'm always happy that I did it.
Mhm.
And I tell myself that. And whenever I do feel more anxiety, more nervous, I I tell my, it's like going to work. I don't feel like going to work, but I'll be done in 6.5 hours. And I'll put it to myself that way there. Okay, I'm going to go and do this. I don't feel like it, but in 2.5 hours, it will be finished. I can do this for 2.5 hours and then it'll be done. And that's it, you know? So for my whole day, all I got to commit to is 2 hours of whatever
Mhm.
that I'm preparing to do. And in that way, there it relieves stress on myself, because you can get overwhelmed, like as if, like, oh, it's going to ruin my whole day. Like that's how I used to feel a lot whenever I got to do something. You
Mhm.
had anxiety before, you have like tremendous difficulty getting ready for this event. And then afterwards, you feel like your whole day is ruined, even though you're done. But yeah, so I put it to myself like in time sometimes. Like I'll be done in 1.5 hours. I'll be
Mm-hmm.
done in 2 hours or something like that. And it relieves some of the pressure. But me, my biggest thing that helps me, and I've done it like almost since the beginning, is talking to myself out loud. I do it all the time. And whenever I feel very bad, in the mirror, and I look into my eyes, and it really helps me to get out of that funk. Sometimes I'll start laughing at myself because I sound so silly. It's like, oh my God, Julie, get over
Mm-hmm.
it. I'm able to calm down much better, easier, faster, and
Mm-hmm.
go on with my day, and nothing ruins my day now. And I'm able to often stay calm. Like whenever my husband, let's say, he'll feel anxiety about whatever, instead of getting all, excited, also, I'm able to calm him down, which helps me to stay,
Mm-hmm.
instead of getting all excited like him or like anybody else around me. I'm able to see what it looks like, and you think like that's what I look like sometimes, or that's what I do. And listening to people and really being honest with yourself, stop denying what's going on, because sometimes I see other
Mm-hmm.
people doing things and I'm like, oh my God, I do that too, I've said that too, I've went there too. And to actually share that also, I find it helps very much. Don't deny stuff and talk
Mm-hmm.
about it is the biggest thing that I could tell anybody going through depression, anxiety, anything, any mental illness. Accept it, acknowledge it, and then you can move on. You can move forward, and educate
Mm-hmm.
yourself about what it is that you're going through. And just because the doctor says, oh, you'll never be able to do that, you shouldn't do this and that, doesn't make it so. Because I
Mm-hmm.
believe that
Mm-hmm.
I am one of those examples. I'm doing very well. I don't have medications. I don't have to go and see a psychologist. I don't have to go and see my doctor, for anything unless I have a bobo, you know. So I feel very,
Mm-hmm.
and a few times, my kids or some of my friends have asked me to talk to people going through uh, difficulties, just to help them out, because I talk about it myself. And, some people have a hard time to believe now, even knowing me back then, that I did go through that I, went down
Sure.
solo and I came back. And some people even forget that I did go through that. You know what I mean? And so today, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
if I express myself and say I'm having difficulties with things, sometimes it'll throw people off because, like uh, like having a broken leg, after the bone is healed, you can walk and run fine, you're fine. You don't have to talk about your broken bone all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's different in that way. So although I'm doing very well, it's still there. I still have to talk to myself. I
Mm-hmm.
still have to work on myself, and just be aware that sometimes I can have anxiety or I can have more difficulties than somebody else would.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I think I think you're absolutely right. Talking about it is key for me. And I know I've had the experience that you shared of people feeling that they had permission to talk about their depression because I talked about mine. It opens up a door for a lot of people. And I'm not
Yeah,
sure what it is that people feel really ashamed. I felt really ashamed, and I think you expressed the same, like ashamed that we felt that way, and oh, it's a dirty little secret that we have to keep hidden, and we have to pretend that that everything is okay. But going back to the broken leg analogy, someone told me once that depression and all mental illnesses, if you were to look at the microscopic picture of the brain, you would see that there are chemical imbalances and there are problems with neurology that you could physically see, like a broken bone. So for some reason, though, we still make this distinction between what we call a physical ailment, like a broken bone or cancer, and a psychological difficulty or a mental illness, like depression or anxiety. But if you were to look at it at a microscopic level, it still is physical. It's just in the brain, and it's on a much smaller level. Now, I mean, I'm on medication as well, and I think I'm a lifer, and I'm okay with that. I know lots of people who, need to take meds to get over sort of a certain period, and then they're fine without it. But I have just accepted the fact that I'm a lifer, and that it is an important part of kind of my toolbox, to sort of ward off depression. It's not the only thing, and I don't think medication should be the only thing to be relied on. I see a therapist on a regular basis. I do exercise. I, practice mindfulness and meditation, and I have hobbies that I get involved in, and that all contributes to my overall wellness. The other thing I do is that I avoid situations that are not conducive to my mental wellness. So I don't hang out with people that don't make me feel good about who I am. I have a friend, call him a friend, but he doesn't believe in depression. He thinks that people who suffer from depression are all self-indulgent, and like you said, some of your colleagues like putting it on, and we could just sort of pick ourselves up by our own bootstraps and get on with it. So he's got lots of other redeeming qualities. So we talk about the things that we have in common and not the things that we disagree with. But I don't hang out with him
Well,
very often because
it's all in my
I
head. And literally, yes, it is
sorry,
all in
say
my
that again.
some people I have been
Mm,
told it's all in your head, Julie. You know, get over it,
yeah,
snap out of it. It's all in your head. And it's like, oh my
yeah,
God.
mhm,
I wish.
yeah. Well, I mean,
But
and that's like saying a broken leg is all in your leg.
yeah,
Like I
exactly.
mean,
Walk it off.
yeah. So so what are some of the you mentioned there's the talking to yourself in the mirror, which I really like as a strategy, but also talking to other people about your depression and helping other people in their depression. Are there other things that you do to stay well, to keep you on sort of the right track?
Uh, I stay active, and I go out a lot. I like being like not super busy, but I enjoy working. I enjoy going out. I enjoy my kids and babysit. Like, at this stage, every time, this is one example, every time I babysit my kids, my grandkids that are 3 and 5 years old, super busy. I don't feel like it every time that I babysit them because they're a lot of work and they burn me out. I'm so
Hmm.
tired whenever I'm done babysitting them, but I do it to stay active. I go out for walks to
Hmm.
be active, and I feel so good doing it. And I find making dates and going out and setting up things. I started curling, and there I want to start another activity. And every Tuesday night before I gotta leave, especially in the winter time, it's cold, it's dark. I just want to put on my pajamas. I don't feel like going, but every time that I'm there and I come back, I'm glad I went. And that's what you have to think about,
Hmm.
because you're like, you don't regret going for a walk, you don't feel like it, but you do it because every time you're done, you're happy you did it, you're proud of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what you so need, that whenever you're feeling down, whenever you're depressed, is to feel proud of yourself. And you will every time you do,
Hmm.
because I find the worst
Absolutely.
thing to do is to sit there or be inactive, doing nothing, not going out. It's the worst thing because all you do is think about your weaknesses, think about your failures, think about all the wrong things,
Hmm.
instead of focusing on positive, bettering yourself, going out, being proud of yourself. So I find staying active, and sometimes when you're having, a good day, plan a whole bunch of things ahead of time, and then you're committed. You have to
Hmm.
go out that day and do something, and think
Yeah.
of the results, all the time. Like, why should I go out? Well, because it's good for you, because it'll be good for, whatever it is that you need. You have to focus on that end, that light at the end of the tunnel. Well, you have to think about it all the time. And it is work. You have to tell yourself it is,
Hmm.
you have to accept that you're always going to be working on yourself, you know? But everybody
Hmm.
works on
Yeah.
themselves all the time for different reasons. You, it might be depression, and the other person might be weight loss. The other person might be money issues. We all have something, and that too. Whenever you realize, like, we all have something to work with, and to work for, and to
Hmm.
with, but to really focus on the end result, that you'll be happy you did it, you'll be proud to do it, and you just, all you have to do is want to. There's got to
Hmm.
be one little
Hmm.
brain inside of you that wants better, and you can make anything happen. And that's what I always
Yeah.
think all the time.
Yeah. And, like you were talking about, accomplishing goals, like getting out and taking a walk, you never feel bad afterwards. I found one of the things I had to do was I had to reset my goalposts and focus on what I call small victories. Because usually my depression came at like the peak of a really busy time at work, right? So I would be, I'm making the phone calls and writing the emails and doing the things and filing the reports, and I was super busy, super occupied, super productive, but too much so. And then I would have a big crash, a big fall, and then all of a sudden I'm sitting at home in, sweatpants, and I haven't showered in 3 days, and I'm just like, I have accomplished nothing. And I really had to reset my goalposts and be like, you know what? Took a shower today. Check. That's my
Yeah,
small victory for the day.
simple.
And I, not to recommend, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Even if I just, got up and washed a dish, that was, I'm just like, okay, that's a victory, okay, because I did something, you know.
Exactly.
Um, and I found that helped me sort of build myself back up. I wasn't going to file a grant proposal that was going to get us $100,000 that day because I didn't have the capacity to do that. But did I have the capacity to shower? Yeah, I could do that. Did I have the capacity to put in a load of laundry? Yeah, that I could probably handle. And then the next day, maybe I do two things: take a shower and, put a load of laundry in. And that's the way sort of I built up my resilience. And it sounds like you sort of followed the same kind of philosophy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I mentioned before, you force yourself to go out, you force yourself to meet people, or you force yourself to go for a walk. And then, like, eventually, you're not forcing yourself, you're wanting it. Me, I started walking
Hmm.
to the mailbox. I'm gonna walk to the mail because it's almost a kilometer to my mailbox. So that was an easy thing.
Hmm.
I walk to the mailbox, and that's it. That's all I had to do all day. Like you said, I got showered, I got dressed. I'm not cleaning the house today, but I'm going to walk to that mailbox and pick up an envelope, and,
Hmm.
start with small goals like that to eventually get to where you can imagine yourself. Now I'm at the point where I
Yeah.
can do a fast walk. I'll put on my earphones and I'll put some really upbeat music there, and I walk as fast as I can, and I'm doing very, very well. And now I'm up to, I can do 11
Hmm.
or 12 kilometers in an afternoon. And
Wow.
before that would have been like asking me the world. I had to convince myself just to walk
Yeah.
to the mailbox whenever I started to give myself these
Hmm.
simple goals. like you mentioned, and or meeting a friend for coffee or whatever. But that was one of my first things that I used to challenge myself with, was just walk to the mailbox, and that's it. You don't even have to get dressed, because if you wear a long coat,
Yeah.
nobody will see you're still wearing your pajama. You wear jogging pants and nobody will know, but eventually that little walk to the mailbox became, well, I'm going to shower and I'm going to fix myself up and get dressed, and oh, I'm going to clean the house before I go. And just that little walk to the mailbox, which took like 10 minutes there, 10 minutes back, became me being
Mhm.
active for 3 hours. And eventually I'd walk to the past the mailbox, and then on my way back I'd pick up the mail. And it's just very, very simple tasks. You don't have to do
Mhm.
everything, and you don't have to give yourself big, 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 huge jobs, because it'll overwhelm you and you end
For
up doing nothing,
sure. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Um,
another thing too
so I
that
know
I can't,
when, go ahead.
but because before you didn't talk about depression, and you mentioned like you're going to be on meds like probably forever, and you still seek help, which is good. You should be happy and proud of that, because that wasn't available before. The help was not
Mhm.
available before. People did not talk about it before. We didn't know what meds to prescribe people before, and people would just deal with it on their own with no help, no resources. So, no, I don't
Mhm.
like telling people, okay, I went through a depression, I was on medication, and, I went to see a therapist and all the things that I did do. But I'm also very happy that I had that, and I'm able to tell people about it to help them too, to help themselves. Because I can't imagine having gone through this by myself with no resources, no meds at that point in my life,
Mhm.
not being able to talk about it, and, just I don't know, pretending, wearing a mask, because that's how I felt at the beginning
Yeah.
whenever I was forcing myself to get up and get out. You wear a mask and you pretend you're normal, Julie. You're pretending to be normal
Mhm.
um, until you become normal, because I don't know anybody who's like all normal. But,
I
you
have
don't
not
feel
met that person yet.
pretending anymore. That's what you should look forward to, with your small, simple goals, and be
Absolutely.
happy
Absolutely.
that you have the resources, or that you're able to take the medication. And, you know, I think of myself as being proud of who I am now, and that includes everything that I've done, everything that I've needed, everything, I went through.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, you have been through a lot and you have come out on the other side just absolutely radiant with it, and I think that's the other thing is that, people should be proud of, of themselves regardless. But, I remember seeing this little cartoon and it was two frames. And the first frame was just a picture of a stick figure that had climbed a mountain. And he's standing at the top of the mountain and he's saying, I did it. And then the bottom picture was, a valley. Okay. And someone had climbed up to the top, had been down to the valley and had climbed up to the other side. And he's like, I did it, and the caption underneath was, we should celebrate both of these things, not only reaching the highest highs, but also overcoming the lowest lows. We should be celebrating that. Now I know that my when I first crashed, I had to leave the museum, I had to leave my apartment, and I had to move back in with my parents at 25 because I really needed to rebuild. My mother had been through a depression as well, and the first thing she said when I came through the door, she gave me a hug and she says, "It gets better." Now, I did not believe her at the time. I'm like, you don't
Oh God.
understand the things I understand. You don't feel the things that I feel. I am going to feel this way forever. And I was absolutely sure of that. And of course, she ended up being right. And through long experience and over the last 25 years, I've had big crashes. I've had big dips, as big or if not bigger than the one I had when I was 25. But if I was to give a message of hope, it would be that, it does get better. You can seek help. What would your message of hope be for someone who is suffering from depression, is down in that low?
You're loved. You're loved because whenever you're down
Mm,
low, you can't even imagine anybody even liking you, even wanting to be in the same room with you. But you are loved. You
mm,
know, you might not feel it, but you are loved. You are valuable, and you are special. Like we're all unique and special, and that's why you're here. You have a mission to do. Before you're born, you're given a mission. There are things you need to learn in life, and this is one of them. You're not broken.
mhm.
Just need help right now. You're loved, and you know, I don't want to say you can do it, but you can. All you have to do is want to. There's got to be a little
Mhm.
brain inside you that wants better, and you will be able to do it. But the biggest thing is being able to feel the love around you. You know, it's such a big thing because you're so dark sometimes that it's so hard to believe. And if you could
Yeah.
accept that, you could maybe get the help that you need faster, because I found that was the biggest hurdle whenever I had first crashed myself, was to believe that I'm worth the trouble, that I'm worth, you know,
Mm,
people's time, their investment in me, because you feel so bad. And that is probably the biggest hurdle. Now that I look back on it, is probably the biggest thing was for me to accept that I am worth it.
mhm.
Hard to
Yeah.
imagine being worth it, being loved, and being able to get out of it, to better yourself. It's so hard to imagine it. For other people, it's possible, but
Yeah.
not me, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. No, and I mean, I'm sure your husband and your kids and your grandkids would very much agree that you were worth it, and I think that's a great message of hope. Julie, I want to thank you. You said before we started recording, you said you didn't think you had an hour in you, but we've
Oh
gone
my
over
God.
that, and we could probably talk a lot more, I'm sure, and maybe we will someday. But I really want to thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability and your transparency in this discussion. I really appreciated it, and I'm sure this is going to help anybody who listens to it.
Yeah, if I could help at least one person, that would be so awesome. And I'm
That's
available
it.
to talk anytime.
Fantastic. Thank you, Judy. You have
Thank
a
you.
great rest of your day. Thanks again. Bye
Thanks.
bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
You can actually stay on. I just stopped the recording. So